Here we go. Groovers, drinks coach. Yeah, next episode. Gosh, it's warm in here. Why am I doing this? 3 reasons. Number one, the delightful Siobhan Asprey from Haynes, Hanson and Clark, one of the most enlightened wine buyers in the independent sector, very kindly sent me a whole bunch of Beaujolais a few months ago now, I have to admit, and I've only just finally managed to get round to it. Also, I'm cooking my father-in-law on Father's Day a load of sausages on a barbecue, and I can't think of anything nicer with sausages on a barbecue than a slightly chilled glass of really good quality Beaujolais. So here we are. It's Beaujolais time. Okay, we've got 4 different Beaujolais to try here. Um, Looks like we're going to go left, right to left, probably. I think. And I've got a little bit of information each one, certainly enough to keep this conversation going. But before we start, if anybody realizes with the price increases of wine over the last 5 to 10 years, I haven't really sort of realized that Beaujolais has become, within the industry anyway, a fantastic turnaround story of young generations taking over from older generations, taking over sort of poor vineyard practices, taking on, in some cases, old, poorly managed vineyards, but then vineyards that also have very old vines providing not necessarily large quantities of grapes, but fantastically high quality. Um, Also, Beaujolais was a bit of a joke, wasn't it? People talk about Beaujolais Nouveau, which is already has become a thing again. But Beaujolais Nouveau now, if you ever try the wines from Georges de Boeuf, who pretty much invented Beaujolais Nouveau and makes most of it now. He makes a Beaujolais Nouveau and a Beaujolais Village Nouveau. Um, I tried the 2024s and they were perfectly delicious, to be honest. And they weren't even horribly overpriced. In the old days, Beaujolais Nouveau would sell for slightly more than table red Burgundy, which is just laughable if you think about it now, that a Rouy would cost about the same price as a Beaujolais Nouveau. Beaujolais Nouveau now is about £11 and a Rouy is about 35. So um, we should be looking back at Beaujolais again. And those people that have been into wine and love their food primarily, because I think these wines are just most wonderfully gastronomic red wines. And whites, of course. Beaujolais does make some delicious white wine as well, and rosé, etc., and fizz, etc. Anyway, so what we've got here is 4 Beaujolais, but I wanted to mention somebody, a very good friend of mine, who has a phenomenal palate and has devoted all her passion and love to this project. This is the book of The Wines of Beaujolais by Natasha Hughes, Master of Wine. There we go. And I think she deserved a massive big up. So there we go. I'm telling you that if you want to know anything about wine, you can buy it online for around 30 odd quid, I think it is. A copy hardback. I've even seen it secondhand, but don't buy it secondhand. Buy some from Natasha. She deserves the income. It's a brilliantly written book. If you're going to pass the MW exam, or you want to be very, very confident about the O level, the level 4 diploma WSET, this is a kind of a must read. She writes with charm, erudition, and warmth. I just like the way she writes, and we have had many, many conversations about booze and food over the years. She also let me stay at her house when I had nowhere to go. So there we go. Natasha Hughes, I love you. Here's to you and Mark. Everyone buy this book. It's really good. Okay, so, right. Beaujolais. Do we start at the beginning? I don't know. I've done Beaujolais shows before. I suppose we have to let people catch up. So, number one, what is Beaujolais? Beaujolais is a region in the Rhone Alp, the administrative Rhone Alp. It is technically administered as a part of Burgundy, but once you go past the south of Macon, climate and soils change very, very dramatically. So these wines, I think, sometimes have more in common with Northern Rhone than Southern Burgundy, although there is a genuine overlap. Some wines that can be sold as Saint Véran can also be sold as Beaujolais Blanc. There is a kind of a grey area there. But the most important thing you got to remember is that Beaujolais is the world famous wine, and really the only world famous wine made from the delicious Gamay grape, Gamay. There are lots of different sort of clones and strains of Gamay, some which have red flesh, some that don't, some big, some are small, some are good, some are bad. But Gamay, generally speaking, is such a fashionable grape variety. If I'm going out for a glass of wine at lunch with the steak, or if I want to have a half bottle or a bottle in a wine bar, I'm looking at Beaujolais almost straight away. In weather like this, stick it in the fridge for 10 minutes. It wants to be cellar temperature, not ice cold, but no, have a little bit of a bite to it. And then it becomes incredibly refreshing, as well as very versatile in the kitchen. Right, so we're going to start off with this. which is an Haynes, Hanson and Clark bottled Beaujolais. This is from Domaine G. Bouillon. He's situated not far from the north of Villefranche, I think it is, if I remember the last time I looked, or south of Beaujolais. And it's near the aerodrome, the airfield, um, sort of just south of the main cruise of Beaujolais. This is a 2024 Vieille Vigne. Reading up about it, some of the vines are over 100 years old, so they produce very, very low yields, but the grapes that come out are weaponized CIA stash, right? So here we go. This is Beaujolais Vieille 2024, selected by Siobhan. Cheeky try. What does Beaujolais taste like? Well, if I go back to Dr. Walters, my chemistry teacher, who used to host our Enophilic Society at my over posh school that I went to, Winchester College, the first wine he ever poured us was a Beaujolais, and he said, Beaujolais tastes of spangles. Spangles are boiled English sweets, like Fox's fruits, but everyone ate spangles back in the day. The only time you'd ever see a spangle now is in a British issue 24-hour ration pack where they put iodine in the spangles. So if you're feeling a little bit horny while you're not keeping your eye on the job and you're thinking about your lovely partner at home in bed, you have a couple of those and it completely kills the libido. Not even joking. Okay, right. So I can smell the cherries, some black cherry. What does it say about it here? Low yields with a bright ruby purple color, fragrant, red cherries, hint of almond. Yes, there is an almondine characteristic, which kind of enhances this notion of cherry because cherry stones can smell, like kind of amaretto, right? Amaretto is made from cherry stones. Mm. Effortless drinking. It doesn't taste too alcoholic. It's what, 12 and a half? Where are we? 13. 13% alcohol. So you're getting a whack of fun for your money. And this is at Haynes is 12.75 a bottle at 153 quid a case. So at 12.75 a bottle, what can you buy for 13 quid these days that is considered fine wine? Very bloody little. This wine would be lovely with something like a Pierre, a sheep's rind washed cheese, maybe a goat's curd cheese like Saint-Maur or Crottin de Chavignol, something like that, especially if slightly chilled. The grassiness that you get from young, look at slightly less ripe sites in Beaujolais just suits those kind of um, sheep and goat cheese very, very well. Or maybe some Coulommiers or Brie would work as well. There's a grassiness to Brie too. Okay, so we're going to move on to my favourite of the 10 crus of Beaujolais. Beaujolais has a bunch of hills in a row. Moulin Avant at the top with Juliana, then Fleury and Cherouble down there, Shan out there, all the way down to the bottom to where a lot of the most Beaujolais village wines come from, from an area called Les Pierres Dorées, or the Golden Soils. But there's 10 crus in a row. One of the ones most furthest north, and because of the way that the fissure where the line of hills comes from, the way it's cracked means that some crus have very specific soil types and other crus have different ones. Um, I was told this is an amazing piece of information that the Beaujolais Hills, which are about the very highest, about 600 meters at the very top, the top cruise, I think is it Cherouble? I think that if you buy Natasha's book, it will tell you. Um, they're probably 500 something meters, but the very very top of the toppest hill, it kind of looks like a mountain in English terms, but it's still just a very tall hillock, really. Um, I was told that when they were being formed, the mountains in Beaujolais were 20 kilometers tall. That's twice as high as Mount Everest. And it's just wind and erosion and movement of tectonic plates that's got rid of those mountains over gazillions of years, which is pretty hard to believe, but apparently it's true. Um, but the breaking up and opening of the very, very ancient soils, the gneiss soils, the rose schist soils, there's a wonderful granite called Pierre Bleu, very, very dense. There's Pierre Bleu in Juliana and not many other of the crus. And I think that gives a quintessentially not just Beaujolais component to the flavour and the minerality of it, the firmness and the structure of the wine, but it's something almost quintessentially Juliana. Because it's between slightly more mineral driven wines like Cherouble and very fragrant, peachy wines like Fleury. You've got this kind of combination of the two somehow. So you've got this wonderful perfume in Juliana, and indeed it was Napoleon's favourite cru in Beaujolais. In fact, when eating roast chicken, if he could run out of Romanée Conti, the world's most expensive wine, his second choice was always to drink Juliana from Beaujolais, which is quite exciting, especially when you think that these wines are not stupid money. I'm looking here at Domaine de Foretal, which is the one we've got here. Domaine de Foretal, Juliana, is just outside Varennes, and they want 15 quid a bottle for it. 15, 20, same price as the Provence Rosés I did in the last episode. Okay, so let's try this. My father and I were always big fans of Juliana. So let's see what we can see, what we can dig out as a difference between the next three crus. We've got Juliana, and then we've got some Côte de Brouilly, which is becoming incredibly exciting. On the hill of Brouilly, you've got Brouilly at the top of the hill, producing very ripe, fruit forward wines. Got this wonderful producer called Tivin, which has a whole bunch of different cuvées in Côte de Brouilly, which is kind of like the crown around ideal height around the mountain, and very specific sites have soil and very specific aspects. And the ones used in the Côte de Brouilly we're about to come onto are very specifically southeast facing, in very, very heavily schistous soil, which produces this satiny texture sometimes. So we're looking forward to that. And then we've got Terre Dorée from Jean Lebrun, which has become a bit of a superstar in his own time. His winery is based in the south of the Cruz, but he has sites all over the place, including very near the north in Fleury. Fleury is probably by almost 2 times the largest of all the Cruz. So there we go. This wine has, first of all, the colour of Juliana. Juliana always appears to be slightly bluish. I don't know if that's to do with the soils, to do with the pH, but it has a crimson red colour, really pretty. Never black, never not see-through, but it has a most gorgeous looking kind of velvet crimson colour. Absolutely classic Juliana. You're starting off with the smell of violets in the nostrils, black cherry, elderberry, and then the palate kind of turns on you and becomes almost saline with its stony minerality. Um, it's not super firm. This wine's actually rather velvety. I think that's probably an indication of the vintage. The very hot vintage of 23, the wines were much more muscular in 22. Those wines will keep forever. This is a wine which I think I'll drink relatively young, but it's really, really pretty. I think it says plump, concentrated core. Well, I couldn't agree with that more. Okay, so we've gone from Beaujolais Vieillevin to Domaine de Foretal in Juliana. Now we're at Côte de Brouilly at Domaine Vavril. Vavril? Well, I know what Avril is. That means April. So does that mean Vapril? I don't know. No, of course it doesn't. Don't know this producer either. What has Siobhan written for me? It's a 10-hectare site on the steep hillsides above the town of Beaujeu. The precise vineyard site is celebrated for being southeast. Yeah, the schist soils of Ecluse, which is lieu dit it comes from. Lieu dit meaning site or place. Okay, so Côte de Brie. A lot of people don't realise this, that Brie is an appellation of one of the crus, and Côte de Brie is one of the crus, and Brie is a cru, and then Côte de Brie is a cru around it, like a ring. Um, in most cases, if you go to somewhere like Valpolicella Classico or Brunello or somewhere, or Chianti, the epicenter, the postof's in the center, and then in concentric circles going out, they get less and less serious and probably a little less expensive as well. But that's not what's happening here. The cru of Côte de Brie is very specifically been separated from the cru of Brie because they produce different results. And Côte de Brie is usually the more serious one. Okay, so, oh, it's really attractive. The color is very different. It's more red, less blue red now. You got more blood red. I think that's very much a bloody red color. Why did I laugh? Well, I smell it, and it smells. I think like there might be partly carbonic maceration here. I don't know if it's 100%. It could be 100%, but the wine has a wonderful smell that just smells like the best banana milkshake you've ever had, or banana daiquiri. This is a sign of very youthful Gamay. Of course, it's only 2024 at the moment, and it's capable of aging very nicely for 10 years. There's more to it than that. You get past banana, and then you're in like summer puddings, mulberries, sopping, juicy mulberries, a kind of a graphite core, almost more Bordeaux, more country red, giving it layers of earth and fruit and flowers. It's very, very generous in the mouth. It's very satiny, as I predicted. Silky, it says here. Um, and it has a length that persists. It's a very generous wine, lots of fruit, an excellent example of Beaujolais, irrespective of vintage. So there we go. We've got Beaujolais at 12.75. We've got about £15.20 Julien. The Côte de Brie is 15.45. Extra 25p buys that one. I think they're both equally as good as each other. Now we're going for Jean Paul Brun. Terre Dorée Fleury Jean Paul Brun. That band around the bottom. I remember when I was less knowledgeable and a bit green behind the ears, going to blind tastings and going to the generic tastings of Beaujolais, which used to happen once in a blue moon. And I just noticed that all the wines I liked had Paul Brun's name snipped around the bottom, and I realised straight away that it may not have been the best wine in the region, but it was the wine that I liked the most in those tastings. They have great concentration, amazing density, um, and these wines come from an amphitheatre of ripeness overlooking Poncier from the Grill Midi, the hot grill, the broiler centre, where there's about 6 hectares of vine there that Jean Paul farms. Here we go. So Fleury, what's that all about? Well, Fleury is the one that everyone remembers. It's more. It was a wine that was very fashionable to drink in the 70s and 80s as a quite romantic lunch wine. You know, maybe a wine to have with your wife on your birthday lunch in some pub somewhere at the weekend. Um, Light and accessible, fruity, but some Fleuries are way more extensive than that. Gregoire Oppenau makes these beautiful, soaring perfumed wines, and you've got Chomet at Domaine de Vissou producing these incredible concentrated, almost crunchy, almost Volnay richness of wines. And these are all using the same grape variety, Gamay. Um, so let's see what this fella's come up with. He took over the Domaine nearly 50 years. Oh, that smells so right. Oh, wonderful. It almost smells like Zinfandel. I always get a whiff of the blueberry, huckleberry, bilberry ripeness that you can get from Lodi Zin, high altitude Zin in California. Um, it's just sopping with berries. It's just absolutely delicious. Absolutely delicious. I could drink 3 bottles of that at lunchtime, no problem. I'd be in trouble afterwards, but obviously my wife would help. There you go. Haynes, Hanson and Clark. Thank you very much, Siobhan. Great lineup of Beaujolais this year. Okay, the last one's over 20 quid, but it's worth it. It's only an extra fiver more than the others, but it's selling at 21.25 a bottle or 2.55 for a dozen. So, Beaujolais Vieille Vigne, 12.50. These two about £15. This one about £21. Um, really classy examples of the type. I'd say Fleury is in the modern, full throttle, no holds barred style of Beaujolais. The Côte de Brie and the Julien, let's say, more classic in style. Thanks so much for listening. I hope this has helped you. Go and pass your diploma or your MW, whatever it is. Cheers.